NBA March 5th, Thursday, coming to you live right now to break it down, take really a Q&A approach, look at some of the ownership numbers early on. Small slate, so just natural, just guys going to be extremely chalky at this point. Live on Sportscaster, live on Twitch, live over on YouTube. Excited to break it down, take any questions, try and take a look at where we can find some sort of ownership leverage, you can say, at this point in the day, about 3 hours until lock. What's going on? I see people hopping into the chat right now. I am just going to... What's going on, Fortune? What's going on, Matthew? How are people doing today? Okay. Hope your Thursday is going good. I'm just going to send out a tweet right now. And say live now. Cool. Yeah, so I'll let people filter in here. Target offense sheet is over my head right now. What's going on? Some people coming in. And really just want to talk about, I have my projections up on another screen over here. Projections for right now, the presenting sponsor of the show, if you're watching live or on the replay, Super Draft today. Super Draft is somewhere that you should be checking out, you should be playing on when it just comes to a different type of multiplier or a different type of format, just a multiplier format today. Another nice prize pool up top. They've gone from just only having $1,000 prize pools to consistently having $5,000 and above. $7,000 one last night. You have a $5,000 one tonight. $10,000 ones they'll usually do earlier in the week when NBA on Mondays and Tuesdays is usually the most active time in terms of quantity of contests across any site. But if you want a $10 free play on Super Draft, you can get that on your first deposit, linked down below, or using the promo code SAL, that is SAL. So you want to check that out, you can. Projections are up for Super Draft, they're up for DraftKings, they are up for Fantasy Draft. All of those things can be found on Patreon, but I'm here to answer your questions now. There's my plugs, they're all out of the way. So, Sal, do you play any tiers on DraftKings? I do not. When it first came out like a year ago, or maybe it didn't even first come out then, but when I first noticed it last NBA season, I played a little bit. It's just the prize pools at that point. Like, I do think that if you have projections, playing tiers over on, it's like a couple of other sites that are out there, some smaller sites like Overlay, DFS. You're just going based on projections at that point. And obviously projections are not always going to be spot on, and a lot of other people that you're playing against are using projections, so it comes down to just trying to have a little bit of a unique lineup as well in tiers. So I really don't play tiers. If the prize pools were bigger, right, even if they were like in the $20,000 and $50,000 range instead of $100K, I'd probably play a little bit more. Matt Duffy says, thanks for the content. What's going on, Matt Duffy? Yeah, no problem. I actually went to school with Matt Duffy. I'm not sure if you're the same one. Elementary school in New York. Sal, the fresh haircut. Yep, baby, yep. Smart, Porter Jr., and Brogdon did it for me. Yeah, everybody just getting hurt for the most part last night. Yeah, everybody getting hurt. Look, it wasn't it was a nice slate, actually. Like, it wasn't a great night if you weren't going to be paying attention a lot, but it was actually a nice slate to be paying attention to be playing on if you were paying attention. And then a lot of things just went to crap on some of the chalkier players like Marcus Smart, like Kevin Porter Jr., end up just getting hurt. Brogdon as well looked like a really strong play to me. I would have had a takedown if Brogdon played full. Yeah. Gary Harris / Miles Bridges head-to-head stack. Which one do I want more is the question there. It's going to be Miles Bridges for me, between Miles Bridges and Gary Harris. I mean, it's factored into the price point, but yeah. Thoughts on Gary Harris for tonight in a GPP? I think he's viable, right? So he's like one of the worst viable players just because like he'll see the minutes, 30 or so, maybe 32, but his point per minute projection is just terrible. His overall projection is terrible. He's the last option on the court at all times for this team, the fifth option. I have him in a player pool. I have him projected for 21 fantasy points. That's 4.8x, so not great, but obviously in a GPP, you're looking for some sort of variance, so it's a difference of if he makes an extra shot or not for him to hit 5x value. $4,400, he rarely will get you above 25 fantasy points. I mean, I think he's done it twice this calendar year, so yeah, not really one of the type of guys that I want to get to, but I understand when you're asking that question, it's because there's absolutely no value on this slate right now, and also when you're taking a shot on Gary Harris, you're taking a shot who's probably likely to come in with no ownership, if I had to guess, just because he grades out projection-wise like pretty terrible. So let's actually see him. I'm curious of where his ownership is going to be on this slate. Projected right now, like no ownership, around 10% projected ownership. Not crazy. Is Powell worth getting to? I think Powell looks decent tonight, but only if, obviously, Fred VanVleet is out. I'm currently projecting Fred VanVleet, Ibaka, and Gasol out, and at that point, I have Powell projected for a pretty nice stat line. He projects out right now, Powell, for me as my... Where'd he go? Powell is currently my 10th play on the day. That's not saying a lot because there's only currently 80 players I have projected on the entire slate at all. And obviously it's a 4-game slate. If this was your normal 8-game slate, he'd probably filter somewhere around the 20 to 30 range. But today I have him as my 10th play with Van Vliet out, Ibaka out, and Gasol out in my projections currently. Sally going live. Yeah, we went live on Tuesday. We went live today. The goal is to go live 1 to 2 times a week for the NBA for the remaining month or two of the season, obviously with playoffs as well in there, really only 1 month left. And back-to-back days, Gordon Hayward and Kevin Porter have kept me from cashing huge. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great, especially when Kevin Porter doesn't start because he forgot his jersey or something. Just brutal. Yeah, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. We're getting closer to only 400 away from 20,000. Definitely helps out. This is just going to be a YouTube-only video. Twitch and Sportscaster as well. I see everybody over there. So if you're on Twitch right now watching, I can see you in the chat. What do we got? If Graham plays, would you roster him at 5.8K on DraftKings? It's a fair price point. Like, I mean, his point, I haven't projected out right now, so I don't really have a projection for him, but 5.8K is a fair price point. I imagine the ownership should stay low on him because of the Q tag, depending on how long it takes. So I'm okay. I'm okay to get to some Graham. I don't think he's like at 5.8K, people might jump up and down for that type of a play. I think there's a ceiling on it in GPPs. So if he's lower owned, yeah, I would get to him. If he starts to become one of the highest owned players on the slate because he's 5.8K and people think that's a cheap price tag, it's cheap relative to how he's been playing at the beginning of the year, relative to how he's been playing as of late. It's an appropriate price tag. So if you ended up seeing Graham tonight at like on a 4-game slate, 25, 30% owned, no interest. If he's going to come in at like 10%, like right now where he's coming in, people I believe, I guess, are assuming that he plays. I think his ownership looks fine right now. But you're going to see guys touching close to 40, maybe even 50% tonight, depending on what the value situation hits on a 4-game slate. Who's your favorite play under 4,000 today? You're probably going to be starving for value under 4,000 today, to be honest with you. It's probably Patrick Beverley. It's probably Patrick Beverley, but Patrick Beverley's in a rotation with Lou Williams, with Reggie Jackson, with endless amounts of guys right there. Like in a matchup against Harden and Westbrook, you might get the better defender in Patrick Beverley on the court more. I have him at 24 minutes. At 24 minutes and 3,600 in a fast-paced, high-scoring game versus Houston, he looks like my favorite paydown option. Picking up some ownership though right now, so. Outside of that, you can take shots on PJ Tucker, Mike Scott, but I really don't like anything below 4,000. Beverly's probably the best looking thing right now. Also, if you want these projections and everything that I'm looking at, Patreon people who are in this chat there can look at it as well. If you're not, you can sign up for Patreon. Link down below. What I have over there is just my full model target offense sheet that you're seeing over my shoulder, but then also my player pool updated throughout lock in terms of my interest, DraftKings value and projections. Minutes and all that is in the model, but then super draft points and fantasy draft points and value. So right now on a 4-game slate, I currently have 30 players in a player pool. I imagine that number might get a little bit more if we don't have more value. Since all the value is shaky, I'll probably throw a couple of extra pieces of value in. I might throw in an extra stud or so. Like I don't have Kyle Lowry and De'Aaron Fox. I'm taking stances on them. But based on the ownership, if they're not going to pick up ownership, and right now it really doesn't seem like they're picking up all that much ownership, I'll probably get to a little bit more of both of them. Thinking about putting PJ Tucker in 90% of my lineups. Thoughts? Yeah, PJ Tucker is one of the better below $4,000 values, but his ceiling is just so capped when everybody is healthy. So, like, a good day for PJ Tucker is he'll get 8 to 10 shot attempts. That's a really good day, not just 1 to 2 to 3. And he'll score you like 20 to 25 fantasy points. So, it's very rare that PJ Tucker will ruin your lineups if you don't have him. So I'm usually against getting to that much of a guy like PJ Tucker. I mean, he's the definition of the most inconsistent and disappointing player in all of NBA DFS for everybody that usually consistently plays it. So 90%, yeah, if he goes for 30 for you, fantastic. More times than not, he's going to score somewhere between, I mean, realistically, like 10 and 25. But more times than not in this spot, big minutes, close game, tough matchup, he'll probably score somewhere between 14 and 22 more times than not. So a median projection around like the 18 part is probably what you get more times than not. 90% of that doesn't feel great. And the main reason it doesn't feel great is like, can he kill you? Like when you go 90%, you're hoping that he kills the rest of the field. If he scores 22 points tonight, he's not a guaranteed must-have. Like it'll help you, but it's not a guaranteed must-have. I feel really confident that I don't think PJ Tucker is going for 30 plus tonight. I mean, I have his ceiling in the 20s. You like Covington tonight? Yeah, I think the minutes are fine. The price point of 6,700 is a little bit higher, but especially for the matchup. But you're getting him in a 4-game slate in the best game environment, and he's playing huge minutes. So the price point might shock some people, but I think it's okay. Took your advice on focusing on single entries and have cash 3 nights in a row. Thanks. No problem, Dan. Yeah, man. Single entries and 3 max. Look, I get the glitz and glamour of everybody who plays 150 max, and I respect the people who grind them and actually set up proper rules and are seeing why their lineups, some lineups are dead or duped and all that. And trust me, I've been there and I've done that. But for somebody who creates a ton of content, I'd rather just play single entry 3 max, 20 max from the low stakes to the mid stakes, and sometimes the high stakes if I like the slate. It doesn't make sense to be playing one lineup into the 150 or to the $100,000 to first contest. You're just never going to win. When professionals like Osimo and however many other people are entering 150 lineups to year one, and their 150 to year one is going to beat you every time, first of all. And then you factor in the other hundreds of professionals and people entering in 150. I get it. It's the allure of winning $100,000 and waking up with 100K. And I'm sure a couple of people who aren't professionals and haven't entered more than 50 lineups have done it this year. But just realize it's very similar to the lottery at that point. A lot more fun and probably frustrating, but yeah, I mean, it's all depends on, I guess, your goals with DFS. If your goals are that you realize that it's a gambling sport and that you're probably not going to win the money, but you're hoping to shoot for it, that's fine. If your goals are to make a profit and sustain a bankroll and be able to play this for as long as you want or as long as it exists and not having to hit the deposit button on your bank account, well, then probably just entering one lineup a night into the 150 to first or $100,000 to first isn't the best idea. Are you stacking heavy or spreading exposures? What's up, Ed? Yeah, I think there are ways to correlate your lineups in the NBA. Obviously, the game that has the highest total, if you're picking that game or a game that just ends up having the highest total but wasn't expected to, there's a good chance the players in that lineup are doing good for you. So there is ways to correlate in the NBA. It's not as much, though, that obviously nowhere near as much as MLB or NHL or even NFL, but there are ways to correlate. The biggest way is if you get the game that is one of the 6% of the overtime games in the NBA. So I'm not really, if I have like 4 or 5 players from the same game, it's just because it happened that way. Tonight, I'm not really looking to just load up on one game. The benefits would be if it goes into overtime. Millsap plus or minus 28 minutes. I have him below 28 minutes, and I have him at 26 minutes, I believe. Let me check. I have Millsap at 25 minutes, so just a smaller team. He's not needed to be out there. It sets up better for Jeremy Grant, but 25 minutes seems pretty nice. So more balanced than stars and scrubs tonight, one stud. I mean, it's hard to just, I guess naturally you're going to go balanced because there's not a lot of value. That's kind of where the ownership is indicating, is that a lot of people are going to play a stud up top, and then pretty much everybody's going to play Paul George, and then load in the rest of the guys. But there's not a ton of studs. Like Westbrook and Harden being over 10,000, Westbrook right at 10,000. It's not the crazy pricing of a Luka or a Giannis or Harden 2 months ago when they're at 11,500 or 12,000. So it becomes a little bit easier to fit 2 studs in. I'm getting a lot of both types of lineups tonight. Obviously, when you play your lower value or your stars and scrubs lineups tonight, your value has to pop off. And these are the type of slates that become frustrating because you're literally hoping for the one guy at 4,500 or below that goes for 25 fantasy points, and the difference in trying to depict who that is literally the difference of who hits an extra shot or two. Does Pat Beverly knock down one of his 2 3-point shots tonight? If so, he's probably in the winning lineup, right? Like, that's why these slates kind of stink, because everybody's on like the same 5-6 value pieces, and by everybody I mean like 10% of the field, spreading the exposures apart. But it's really hard to pinpoint which one of those players. I have favorites; they're in the projections. You can see them. I'm being a little bit aggressive on some players, but it's a little bit hard to obviously have a strong stance. I think there are guys though tonight that at the value end of it stand out a little bit more than others. And right now, average ownership, nothing crazy for a 4-game slate. Any love for OG Anunoby? If Fred VanVleet's out, I'll have some interest, but I prefer Powell. Are you seeing any edges on this slate? Stacks, games, fades, etc. Yeah, I think there's some edges. Has nothing to do with stacking a game or fades. I think it's individual players. I think there are a couple of players that are picking up a lot of ownership that deserve it, but I think there's a handful of players, 5 to 10, that are I'd probably want to have 10 to 20 to 30% more than. 30% might be a high number, but yeah. Steph Curry has a 25-minute limit at the most tonight. I get he's only $8,000, so he can do a lot in that, but he's coming in with not heavy ownership, but more than I thought. Paul George, a must on FanDuel with the price. Yeah, he looks pretty good over there. Thoughts on Montreal Harrell minutes versus the small Houston team. I currently have Harrell at. So I think Harrell is. Like, Zubac is not going to play much. Like, if he does, it's just very shocking to me. I currently have Harrell at. Where is he? There he is. I have Harrell at 28 minutes, or 27 minutes I bumped him down to. I originally put him at 28 because of the smaller lineup, then put him to 27. Harrell, for me, grades out as a guy that in GPPs I think you can take a stance on. He grades out right now as not the greatest of plays for me, though. Currently not in my player pool, but something that I'll probably evaluate what the ownership looks like on him closer to lock. If Harrell's going to go unowned, and right now he's picking up no ownership. Yeah, so Harrell's picking up no ownership. That's a guy that I don't have interest in today, but when you see on a 4-game slate a guy who has 40, 50-point upside, it makes more sense for him to be on the court as opposed to Zubac tonight. And maybe it just makes sense for neither of them to be on the court and they run small. But Harrell, if he's going to come in at single-digit low ownership on a 4-game slate, I might have to just put him in my player pool. And what I do by that is I just increase his projection artificially so he pops up in crunches. Covington interest? Yeah, I think he's okay. Thanks for the video, Sal. No problem. Harden or Westbrook on DK. So they're both highly owned. Shouldn't shock anybody. They're both picking up ownership. Between Harden and Westbrook right now, I do prefer Harden. Is Torrey Craig currently in Denver's rotation? I did not give Torrey Craig any minutes. This would be a game that you could possibly see him for 15 to 20 against Harden, but I did not give him any. I'm going 100% Kawhi, PG, Harden, and Westbrook on FanDuel. Good luck. Rank your favorite Clippers point per dollar. Sounds good. Favorite Clippers point per dollar. George, Beverly, Leonard. Hey, Sal, do you like Montrezl Harrell? Montrezl Harrell, not really, but nobody else will either. So on a 4-game slate, that could be a stance. I'm going to throw... Let me find this. So I've been tracking Superdraft's lobbies, their fields. Usually they're Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a little bit smaller. But like the last couple of nights have not come anywhere close to filling. But let me throw this in the chat. If you are interested, I just put a link into the chat that hopefully doesn't get me banned. I actually probably shouldn't have put that one in, but I should put this one in instead, the Twitter one. Oh, well, too late. I just put a link into chat that will take you over to Superdraft. You get $10 on sign-up if you want to check that out. Superdraft, sponsor of this video this morning, and also the sponsor of this Indeed live stream. Fresh Cut Sal, yep. Any Ibaka or Van Vliet injury updates? Just got out of class. No updates yet. They both will be very interesting and strong plays for me if they play, but no updates yet. I like them both a lot. XFL DraftKings contests are now open in New York. There you go. Korkmaz equals a GPP winner. I have him at 23 minutes tonight. We'll see what the starting rotation looks like. Do you like the Sixers guys tonight? Yes. Do you sell your picks? No, that's... If you're looking to buy somebody's lineups online, you are getting scammed. You're looking for a scam. Anybody who's selling lineups or in their Facebook groups or whatever people do, Slack, Discords, and is just making you pay so they give you a lineup for that night, that is very bad. That's like paying somebody to sell you individual stocks. There's just no way that's going to work out for you. Mike Scott or Glenn Robinson? Scott for me. Horford and Tobias. Yeah, they both look good. Tobias, question mark, yeah, looks fine. Can you guess on Van Vliet? Can I guess if he's healthy or not? No, I don't know the man personally. I will not take a guess. We will have injury news on him before the game. Hopefully locks. Well, we should before the game locks. That game does not start until 10:30, so the slate won't lock, so you have to take a risk there. Hasn't played in a couple of days. I don't really have a stance on it either way. I don't have a lean. I've been projecting him out as of late. It is a shoulder injury, so it does not affect his lower body. So if Van Vliet is in, I'm projecting him for full minutes, but we probably don't have that news until, honestly, well after the late games start off. And I guess that your pivot would be you start Norman Powell if you want an interest in playing Van Vliet or Ibaka. You put Norman Powell in your flex or your guard spot, and then you can pivot to Van Vliet. I'd much prefer Van Vliet over Powell at that point. I'd probably even prefer Ibaka over Powell if they were both to start. If Powell was to start and Ibaka was to start and there was no Fred Van Vliet, then I think it's a toss-up. But if Van Vliet starts, I would prefer him over Powell at that point. Any injury news to take note of today? Yeah, I'll pull it up right here. This is the injury news. It's the same. Nothing has changed throughout the day. You have a 25 minutes limit for Steph, but nothing else has changed. We have not gotten any news. It's a little bit early still, so news should probably trickle in slowly, but lots of questionable players. Devontae Graham, 5,800 on DraftKings, 1.55x multiplier on SuperDraft, 11,400 over on Fantasy Draft. Josh Richardson is out. Fred Van Vliet and Serge Ibaka and Marcus All are questionable for Toronto. Steph Curry probable. He is back. Very fun. Excited to watch him play today. 25 minutes limit. No Kevon Looney and Draymond Green is going to be questionable today. PG or Tobias Harris? PG, but both look pretty good. Shake Milton, question mark. It's hard to like him with his price point increasing. I gave him 33 minutes, and he just looks like an okay play. A guy that I wouldn't get to in cash, a guy that in GPPs, he's fine to get to at, what is his ownership, Milton? Projected ownership is average, so I honestly, if it's going to be average ownership, I have less interest in that. Like, if he was low-owned, I'd have more interest, but I'm just not interested. What's ownership projection for Jokic tonight? It's not the 40 number like you're saying. It's in the 20s. I don't have Twitter. Man, Twitter is free. If you don't have Twitter, you could use the promo code SAL over on SuperDraft. I want to limit posting the links directly to SuperDraft, though, in the chat. Usually, if you do that in your descriptions on YouTube, you get banned, so I'm hoping that YouTube algorithm doesn't pick that up here. Harrell's better at home, but he has had some 50-point games in Houston. Yeah, I don't really look too much into that. I mean, Harrell plays 25, 26 minutes a game as of late. Maybe he gets on the court more if there's no more Zubac in this matchup, but it's so hard to judge Harrell's performances. One, if he has one 50-point game against Houston, that doesn't mean he's going to have one tonight. No way. Two, it's hard to judge because now you have Marcus Morris on this team. You have Zubac playing increased minutes as of late. So it's harder to judge it. Jackson being there doesn't change much for him, but yeah. Call SuperDraft and get them in India. Indiana. Yeah, India. Indiana. I'll have to see. I'll send them messages and see if there's any updates on all that stuff for them. Do you like Siakam? Looks very average for me today, Siakam. Siakam grades out as my 12th play and on the slate. I have 30 players in a player pool, so 12th play might seem high, but that's average. The range of 12 through 18 would be my average plays today. Dragon Bender in your player pool? He is not. Maybe I'll have some more interest if Draymond's out, but he is not. Beverly has a history of trying to work Westbrook. Yes, he does. If Westbrook survives the game, he does off. He goes off, but Beverly tries to hurt him. Bold stances, but yeah, maybe they both get thrown out like last time. On FanDuel, are you forced to start Nikola Jokic at center, or do you think there are better plays? I don't play on FanDuel, so I have no idea what the prices are over there. I don't like the site. I don't like the product for NBA, so I can't help you there. Thoughts on Jeff Green? PJ Tucker's backup, and if Tucker gets in foul trouble, yeah, Tucker just doesn't get in foul trouble, so no interest in Jeff Green. Tucker is at one of the lowest rates in the entire league at foul trouble. He just doesn't stand next to the basket. He stands by the three-point line. There's no way that guy gets in foul trouble. So no interest there. I mean, if you want to play the foul trouble game, I do it more so with the centers tonight, like Mason Plumlee, if Jokic gets in foul trouble, something like that. But there's just not going to be much foul trouble for PJ Tucker tonight. I'll pull up his exact percentage. He gets in foul trouble. Let me see here. In the lower 2 percentile. So barely getting in foul trouble. Like some of the lowest rates you can find in the league. I want to look at this now and see if there's a better number on it. Here we go. Foul percentage. All right, Tucker. Yeah, so Tucker fouls 3% of the time. which is very, very low. LeBron is one of the best players at not fouling. He fouls 1.6% of the time. That's unreal with how physical he is. Maybe it's just the refs as well, but 3% of the time is below average. It's less than Jokic, who's a center. He's just a wing. So, and also, like, even if he was going to get in foul trouble, I'd rather play, like, I don't know, Daniel House or probably not Jeff Green. Is OG a smash play? No. Is Steph going to be worth it and put on a show? 25 minutes, $8,000. You can take a risk on it. He's going to be low owned. Not that interested in it, though. Did you say you primarily play low to mid stakes GPPs instead of cash? I play everything at the lower end as long as DraftKings still allows me to before they start to not allow me to whenever my handle gets high enough. But I'll play low all the way up to the few $100 buy-ins. I'm not really a fan of $1,000 buy-ins. But yeah, NBA I don't play cash. NBA I think cash games are solved in my opinion. I think you are really battling it out for probably the exact same projections. Like the person you're playing in cash games most of the time in NBA is going to be somebody who is using similar projections to you and is knowing the similar plays. I think the advantage now in NBA is that a lot of people will play GPPs, maybe not like cash games, but use the same value chalk plays, and then you just play the guy who's 8% owned and projects out for 2 less fantasy points, and we all know that the outcomes are going to be closer than the projections on ownership will indicate. So, yeah, I think NBA cash, I played it a lot last year. Towards the middle of last year is when I noticed just the field's getting a lot more competitive, more sites popping up, more sites offering projections, myself, Awesemo site, lots of things. So the reach for selling a product like a projections got higher. So cash games, I personally don't play much anymore in the NBA. WNBA, sure. XFL, preseason NFL, spots where people don't have as much information. Yeah, I think there's edges there. But cash games in the NBA, everybody's using the exact same information at this point, so you're just doing it for fun. I don't think there's an edge anymore. You like Siakam over 44 fantasy points tonight? Yeah, I think I have him at over. I haven't projected for over that. Will Curry be chalk? No. He's on a 25 minutes limit. Definitely not. Any idea if Kyle O'Quinn gets 15 minutes today? I currently have Kyle O'Quinn. I don't even know if I projected Kyle O'Quinn. I didn't even project Kyle O'Quinn, so I'll say no. Any interest in Curry? Not really. Sweet Lou or Steph? I like the center cheap. I like the cheaper guy plus minutes. Sweet Lou and Steph, both of them are not that appealing to me. Probably Steph for me, but neither of them are that appealing. Right now I have... Yeah, they're both really far down my list. So Steph Curry ranks out as my 46th overall play out of 80 players today. Not great. Lou Williams grades out as my 50th overall play. So 46th and 50th. Obviously, these are median projections, but that being that far down there isn't that great. Is Mike Scott, Alec Burks, and Tobias too much from Philly? On a 4-game slate, no. Especially when 2 of them are really cheap. Considering Zeller, thinking they need his size against Jokic. Yeah, I would just make sure Zeller starts. Otherwise, you can always get caught with a just did not play coach's decision. That's been happening for one of those centers pretty much each game over the last 2 weeks. I wouldn't be shocked for them to start Zeller at the 4 and either Biyombo or Hernan Gomez at the 5. We've seen that multiple times this year earlier on. What about Terrence Davis? Do you think Toronto will go small versus Golden State? Even if they do, I don't think he gets that much run. I am not projecting for... And also, like, Golden State's not playing small. Like, they're playing Marquise Chris for 20-something minutes. They're playing Alan Smiley for 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the night. So they're not playing small. But I have Terrence Davis for 9 fantasy points. He is my 68th play right now out of 80. Love that take, to be honest. What was the take? What's going on, Moose Brains over on Twitch? Siakam's value depends a lot on Draymond's status because Draymond tends to give him problems. Maybe. Can you give a quick lineup? No, I cannot. What's chalk mean? It means a lot of people are higher owned. Thoughts on Mulder? Mulder, no interest of mine now that you have Steph Curry playing. Mulder is just a really bad play in my opinion. I haven't projected for 10 fantasy points. I haven't projected for I haven't projected for low minutes in the teens. He's my 69th overall play out of 80 players, and some of those 80 players right now have no points. So he's my 69th overall play out of 75 projected players. Who do you like on Superdraft tonight? Yeah, I got Superdraft projections over on Patreon if you're interested. My highest projected player on Superdraft is a 1.35x multiplier on Siakam. Thoughts on Harry Giles? I think he's a fine GPP play. Median projection-wise, he's not going to look great. Like, if I tell you where he ranks point per dollar for me, it's not going to sound great. He's in a player pool. He ranks as my 23rd play on the slate. Isn't it tougher to just make money if you just play GPP and not cash in the NBA? I disagree. If you're playing one lineup into the $100,000 to first, yeah, you're never going to win money. If you're playing single entry, 3 max, 20 max at lower stakes, you're going to have higher upside in those. There's just no upside left in NBA cash games, in my opinion. Like you going on a hot streak and winning 3 days in a row and winning $50, and then going on a cold streak and losing 3 days in a row, and then the rate gets you, so you're down 10. You play cash games, in my opinion, in sports where you have an edge information-wise, and your research and everything goes into it. When every single person is checking in the exact same projections or pretty close to them into cash games, and instead of playing a guy, your best 9 guys or 8 guys versus my best or 8 or 9, now you're pretty much choosing between a 2v2 or a 3v3. And playing cash games for a 3v3 and 2v2 erases all of your edge. Everybody is playing the same core 4 or 5 guys every single night in cash games at this point, especially when you go higher up in stakes to like anything above $10. So I have no interest in trying to beat somebody's 2 guys, and then that literally comes down to which guy scores 3 points more than the other, which guy doesn't get in foul. Like when most of your cash games have the exact same 3 to 5 guys in them, that's a sign to start to get away from cash games, in my opinion. Anunoby or Siakam is not a great question. Stephen J. Official asks, it's just a really far price point difference. Like that's not the question you should be asking. It's a 2v2, so it's tougher to just say, like, it's Siakam by a mile, but obviously he's a lot more expensive, so what are you doing with the rest of your money? Sal, you and Eddie over at Awesemo both move the market for players each day with your videos. I don't think so. I don't think I move it that much. If anything, it's like a half a percentage. Like, I make a video and before lock, 2,000 to 3,000 people watch it. 2,000 to 3,000 people watching that video. Maybe a third of them actually utilize the information or care or take something from it, and that's a high number. So even if 1,000 people listen to my advice in a field of 30,000 people, that's just not moving the needle, right? Where people already know the good plays, so like that would be not moving it much. But I mean, I think there's some movement, but it's not anything to make guys who are unowned chalky and guys who are chalky not owned, right? I can move the percentages probably a half a point or half a percentage point. Would you play Harden and Westbrook together? Yeah, I have no issues doing that on a 4-game slate. Thoughts on 4 to 5 players from the Houston-LA game and a couple from the others? That seems fine. Millsap or Grant on Denver? Millsap. I have a feeling Millsap might be a better play than Jokic, and Plumlee might be a sneaky play. Yeah, Plumlee's sneaky if Jokic gets in foul trouble. Sal, when did you start doing these live streams? Somebody asks on Twitch. For the NBA, I did one on Tuesday. I did one last week. They're not going to be consistently every single day. They'll be 1 to 2 days a week for the NBA. Fox over under 38.5. Zachary's probably playing on some site that gives you fantasy points, so I don't know the scoring on that site. So 38.5, what's the site you're playing on if you're doing an over-under prop game? I have them at 39.5, but that's DraftKings scoring, so. Hey, Sal, thoughts on Curry at 8K playing 24 to 28 minutes? He's not going to play 28. He's on a 25-minute limit. 25-minute limit, Steph Curry can score 50 points in 25 minutes, yes, if he gets hot. He can easily score 40+. I have him at 37 tonight. I don't have much interest. Thoughts on playing Wesley and Harden in one lineup? Seems okay. Korkmaz a top 10 guy for you today? No, not even close. Based on my projection on Korkmaz, I don't plan on getting anywhere near his 20% ownership number. And I feel absolutely fine with that. Korkmaz is my 58th play on the day today. Have him at 23 minutes. That's probably low. I probably have to bump up Korkmaz's rates a little bit. But even if I bump this up point per minute with players off the court. So if I bump Korkmaz up with players off the court, it's going to be a big bump for him, but not enough. He becomes my, like 50th play. And I can't even give him that much more of a bump. Even if I give him like an above average game tonight, I'm not going to get, I don't know why the ownership number is 20%. Seems high. I gave him as big of a bump as I could on my end, and he is my 46th play. So I'm probably going to do another 5 minutes, and then I'm going to bounce. If Westbrook gets ejected tonight, yeah, I'm not projecting for that. Who will you likely pick up those minutes? Yeah, I'm not projecting for that. Thoughts on game stacking? How do you feel about a Golden State stack? If you think a game goes into overtime, stack it. But otherwise, I don't really have much interest in stacking them. Len in a GPP tonight. No real interest for me. Any thoughts on House as a cheap pivot from a higher owned Tucker? Yeah, I think you could pivot off of Tucker to House. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I currently have House in a player pool of 30 players. So, yeah, I think you can pivot off of them. Hey Sal, what's the lowest you go on DK and salary when doing MME? I don't set a limit on my lowness. I've thought about setting a limit. It's on Prize Picks. I'm not really a fan of Prize Picks, so I don't have much advice there. Yeah, I don't set a salary bottom number. I have a salary top number. Or actually, I don't set any limits. If it's a smaller slate, sometimes I'll set my top number to like 99 or 98. I've been trying to experiment and see other pros using a max salary, $100 below the cap to get more unique lineups. I think that's interesting. But in terms of lowest salary, I don't set anything. If I get a lineup with $46,000 spent, it's very rare in the NBA. Probably closer to the high 48s, but I'll just keep it. Who's your top 5 plays today on DraftKings? Please and thanks. You can check that out over on Patreon. I'll answer questions, but I'm just not going to give away the entire projections for the good people that pay. Thoughts on Alec Burks? I have a hard time trying to figure out Alec Burks. Where's his ownership going to be tonight, or at least projected to be? Yeah, if Alec Burks is going to be lower owned, I guess I can get behind it. Like mid-teens in ownership doesn't seem that appealing to me though. We obviously know the guy can chuck, but they're just not giving him minutes. He ranks out as my 36th overall play right now. Where do you get your ownership data from? Seems like I get different percentages from different sites. Yeah, you're never going to have the same. It's somebody using algorithms and probably incorporating just optimizing lineups thousands of times and seeing what the percentages are and then taking that. But I use like 2 to 3 different sites, third-party sites for ownership. Plumlee or Porter? Plumlee. Rozier love? Yeah, Rozier looks really good tonight. Len tonight? Not for me. What's going on, Pete? Center on Superdraft looks a little rough tonight. What are your thoughts there? Center on Superdraft for me is going to be Al Horford Is Al Horford a power forward over there or center? I'm assuming he's a power forward. I'm in my data sheet. I have the DraftKings salaries as my positions next to it, but yeah, Giles, Jokic. It's really a toss up, but Giles and Jokic look okay. Thoughts on NBA Showdown? I think it's one of the worst formats you could possibly play. Started playing a lot of NFL Showdown on both there and had a lot of success. Yeah, NFL Showdown's fun, higher prize pools, very variant, but there's some sort of stacking strategies because of correlation. I think NBA Showdown is one of the worst products. NBA has very little correlation outside of overtime and high-scoring games, if you want to even say that with a run-back option. Most other sports have correlation, so you can at least somehow try and correlate a one-game slate, like NHL stacking their lines, like MLB, obviously lineups, whatever else, pitchers. So not against your guys, of course. So, yeah, NBA I think is the worst showdown format I have played once ever, and that's all I'm going to ever play. Actually won a small ticket qualifier. It was like and the only reason I played was it was like a weird noon or 1 o'clock start for a Milwaukee Bucks Atlanta Hawks game. It actually went into overtime, but they ruled out Giannis, Middleton, and Bledsoe like all 10 minutes before lock. So I was like, I'm just going to play the showdown slate. And it turned out like Bledsoe was like 25% owned, Giannis 40, Middleton like 15, 20. So all these guys had high ownership. It was just you can easily cash, and then there's only like 100 people in the field. So I won some sort of ticket. I don't remember for what. How does Chris grade out for you tonight? Average, maybe slightly below average for me tonight, but I think he has a ceiling on him, and it only gets better if he's my 21st play. Probably gets better if Draymond's out. Who do you like tonight? 30 guys. Can I have your lineup? No D-Wall, you cannot. Keep searching, though. I'm sure you'll find one. He says, can I have your lineup? Like I'm going to go play one lineup tonight somewhere. Do you play MMA DFS, Al? I do not. I enjoy watching the fights. Scary, dangerous, vicious, but I do not, no. How can I tell your rankings on Patreon? How do I filter that? Point per dollar. So DK value is where they'll rank out for me, just as like a before factoring in ownership. Any merit to fading Harden? I mean, if you're playing 150 lineups, no, I would not fade him. But if you're playing one lineup, yeah, you don't have to play Harden. Are you targeting Harold at all? Thoughts on the matchup? Yeah, at 3% ownership, he becomes more appealing. I don't think it's a good play, though. But at 3% ownership, I'll probably get to more than I was expecting to. All right, I'm going to stay for like 1 or 2 more minutes. If you want to make sure your question gets answered, you can throw in a super chat. You can donate over on Twitch. Otherwise, you should check out Superdraft. Again, I threw the link in the description to my tweet earlier today. You could also just use the promo code SAL if you would like to get $10 in free super cash. They're probably going to have a good amount of reduced rake and potentially true overlay they've had a couple times as well. So hit the subscribe button before you go. How many people tuned in today? Anybody know? Let me just pull this up. I'll pull up the Superdraft link that I put in here, I believe earlier today. Here we go. Cool. So this will just take you to a tweet, one of my content tweet posts that's scheduled on Twitter, but we'll have the link so you can get $10 free of super cash upon signing up. Kawhi or Westbrook? Kawhi or Westbrook, if you're playing in one lineup tonight, factoring in ownership, I'll go Kawhi. I have right now Westbrook. Yeah, I'll go Kawhi. Ibaka, a lock if he plays. If you're playing one lineup, I think he's a good play. If you're playing 150, no, I would not have him in 150 as a lock. Gary Harris on DK looks like one of the weaker value options, but a lot of these options look pretty weak. Biyombo if he starts. Yeah, Biyombo if he starts looks okay. I'm new here. These are cash game recommendations, correct? It depends on what the question is. I try and factor in ownership for people's questions. I'll usually take them as GPP questions, though, since that's what most people are probably going to be playing. But welcome, Brandon. Does Penn State win a game in the NCAA tournament? Could not tell you. Buddy Hield minutes projection. Good question. Buddy Hield minutes projection for me is... I was typing minutes into my sheet, and that's no wonder why I got an error. I got Buddy Hield tonight at 25 minutes. Did somebody say Michael Porter is not playing tonight? I did not say that. Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Juan. Powell is good play. Powell looks pretty good for me today if Fred VanVleet is out. Eric Pascal ownership thoughts. Yeah, it seems crazy low, but Steph's back. So, one, Draymond is still questionable. If Draymond plays, Pascal at an increased price point is dust. But Steph's back for 25 minutes, so the usage is just going to get pulled away from Pascal in a major way. You have Wiggins out there. You have Steph now. You have Chris. All these guys are going to be used ahead of Pascal, maybe even Lee. So, Eric Pascal at an increased price point. I think the ownership deservingly is low. Would I benefit from switching to cash games? I feel like I'm doing good in GPPs. I only run 1 or 2 lineups. No, just keep playing in single entry and 3 maxes, or you're playing only 1 or 2 lineups. With such high ownership, should I fade Paul George? No, that price point's really good. I'm going to donate on DK tonight. 300 people are watching. That's pretty cool. Nice. How much is luck versus avoiding bad plays? Winning a DraftKings contest involves a good amount of luck. Setting yourself up to win that is skill. Minutes projection if Grams plays. Probably give him 34. Nobody thinks Ibaka will be limited with the knee injury. If I don't hear news that he's limited, then I will play. I will do a full go. They are usually very good with telling us minutes limits. Is it bad that Chris looks good to me? No, he's in play for me. All right, everybody. Promo code case sensitive. No, it should just be Sal. You could just try Sal. But if you click the link that I put down, you don't even have to worry about the promo code. That link has the promo code built into it. So that link that sent you to Twitter, and then if you click the link there, I'll send the link again. So that link that I just put in there, if you click that, there'll be a little thing that says $10 Super Draft bonus. You click that. That has the promo code built in. So if you sign up, you'll get those $10. You don't have to worry about using the promo code. All right, everybody, I'm gonna peace out. If you had any questions that I didn't answer, chances are you could just rewind it to the beginning and I answered it there. You could also get over to Patreon where I have the projections for Super Draft, Fantasy Draft, and DraftKings tonight all uploaded, and they will be updated based on these Toronto news guys and any other news, Devontae Graham, anything else that does come out today. I currently have 30 players in a player pool. Those are marked with a yes. My yeses are my strong interests, and there are 8 of those tonight, and then there are 22 guys who I think are secondary interests. So if you want to consider who is your core, I think that's a terrible idea to consider for DraftKings, but for people like that word, I think I have 8 guys in a core tonight. You can go ahead and find those over on Patreon. So that's linked up down below in the description. free strategy guides are down there as well. I like doing these live streams for the NBA. It's a ton of fun, so appreciate you all tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and peace out, gang.